The scream tore through the marble hallways of the Ikoyi mansion like a blade through silk. Adewale Okonkwo froze at the entrance of his mother's guest room, his briefcase still in hand, the Dubai skyline fresh in his mind from just hours ago. What he saw stopped his heart cold. His wife, Chidinma, stood over his wheelchair-bound mother, an empty steel kettle tilted in her manicured hands. Steam rose from the floor in violent wisps. The smell hit him next, burnt flesh, sharp and suffocating. His mother, Mom Ngozi, writhed on the cold tile, her dark skin blistered red and raw across her shoulder and arm, her mouth open in a silent, breathless agony. Chidinma. His voice exploded across the room. What have you done? The kettle clattered to the floor, boiling water splashing across designer tiles. Chidinma stumbled backward, her white silk dress clinging to her body, her face pale beneath her foundation. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. Adewale dropped everything and rushed to his mother. Her eyes were open, staring up at him, not with anger, but with a sadness so deep it crushed him. Her wrinkled hand reached for his face, trembling. "My son," she whispered, voice cracked and broken. Don't hate her." He wrapped his suit jacket around her shoulders, tears streaming down his face. "Mama, no. No, no, no. Stay with me." Behind him, Chidinma's voice finally broke through. "I didn't mean to wail, I swear, I just wanted her to." "To what?" He whirled around, his voice a roar that shook the chandelier. "To sign over my mother's inheritance? To give you what you've been begging for." Chidinma's eyes widened. Guilt flashed across her face before she tried to mask it with tears. "You don't understand. She insulted me. She said I wasn't worthy of you." "Liar." Adewale's chest heaved. He looked down at his mother, whose breath came in shallow gasps. "Call an ambulance. Now." Chidinma didn't move. She stood frozen, her expensive perfume mixing with the acrid smell of burnt skin. He pulled out his phone himself, his hands shaking so violently he could barely dial. As he pressed the phone to his ear, he looked at the woman he'd married 3 years ago, the woman who'd stood beside him at charity galas, who'd smiled for Forbes Africa, who'd whispered promises in their bed. And he saw a stranger. What would you do if you walked in on this? Have you ever been betrayed by someone you loved? Hit like if this story is hitting close to home, and comment below where you're watching from. Lagos, Nairobi, Accra, London, New York? Let's connect. Adewale Okonkwo wasn't always a billionaire. 10 years ago, he was a brilliant but broke engineering graduate from a University of Lagos, hustling in the tech startup scene, living in a one-room apartment in Yaba with his widowed mother. Mom Ngozi had raised him alone after his father died when Adewale was 12. She'd sold her jewelry, worked as a seamstress, and even cleaned offices at night to pay his school fees. "You will be great, my son," she used to say, her fingers raw from pushing needles through fabric. "Not because of money, but because of your heart." When his app, Payrise, exploded across West Africa and attracted a $50 million buyout from a Silicon Valley giant, Adewale became an overnight sensation. Forbes called him Africa's tech prodigy. He bought a mansion in Ikoyi, moved his mother in, and promised her she'd never suffer again. That's when he met Chidinma Nwachukwu. She was a model-turned-influencer, her Instagram feed a carefully curated fantasy of luxury. At a tech conference in Accra, she'd approached him with a smile that could melt steel. Within 6 months, they were married in a wedding that trended on Twitter for 3 days straight. But Mom Ngozi had never trusted her. "My son," she'd said on the wedding night, gripping his hand. "That woman's eyes. They don't smile when her mouth does." He'd laughed it off. "Mama, you worry too much. Chidinma loves me. Does she love you, or what you can give her?" He should have listened. The ambulance sirens wailed through the Lagos night, cutting through the hum of generators and distant Afrobeats music. Adewale sat in the back, holding his mother's hand as paramedics worked frantically. Her eyes fluttered, her breath shallow. "Sir, we need to intubate," one paramedic said. "Do whatever it takes." Adewale choked out. Just save her. His phone buzzed. A text from Chidinma. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Please come home. We need to talk. He stared at the screen, his jaw tight. Then he blocked her number. At Lagos University Teaching Hospital, doctors rushed Mom Ngozi into emergency care. Adewale paced the waiting room, his designer shoes squeaking against the linoleum. His mind raced. How had it come to this? How had he let his wife, the woman he'd trusted, hurt the one person who'd given him everything? 3 hours later, a doctor emerged, exhaustion written across his face. Mr. Okonkwo, your mother is stable. Second-degree burns across 15% of her body. She'll need skin grafts and intensive care, but she'll survive. Adewale collapsed into a chair, his face in his hands. Relief and rage warred inside him. Can I see her? She's sedated, but yes. 5 minutes. He walked into the ICU, the beeping of machines filling the silence. Mom Ngozi lay wrapped in bandages, an oxygen mask over her face. He sat beside her, taking her unburned hand gently. I'm so sorry, Mama, he whispered. I should have protected you. Her fingers twitched, as if she could hear him even in sleep. He stayed there until dawn, watching her chest rise and fall, making a silent vow. Chidinma would pay. Not just with money. Not just with shame. With everything. When he returned to the mansion at sunrise, the gates opened automatically. The house was silent. Too silent. He walked through the grand foyer, past the Italian marble, the crystal chandeliers, the life they'd built together. Chidinma sat in the living room, still in her white dress, now stained with watermarks. Her eyes were red, but Adewale couldn't tell if it was from crying or fear. Wail, she stood, her voice pleading. Let me explain. Explain what? His voice was ice. That you tried to murder my mother because she wouldn't sign away her inheritance rights? That you poured boiling water on a 70-year-old woman in a wheelchair? It wasn't like that. Chidinma's voice cracked. She provoked me. She said I was only with you for your money, that I didn't deserve to be your wife. She was right. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Chidinma's face crumpled. You don't mean that. I've called the police, Adewale said quietly. They're on their way. You have 2 choices. Leave now and turn yourself in, or wait for them to arrest you here. Either way, you're done. You can't do this to me. Chidinma's voice rose to a shriek. I'm your wife. We took vows. You broke every single one the moment you hurt her. He turned to walk away, but Chidinma grabbed his arm. If you do this, I'll destroy you. I'll tell everyone you abused me. I'll take everything you have in the divorce. Adewale looked down at her hand on his arm, then back at her face. Try it. My lawyers are already drafting the papers. And the security footage from this morning? It's already backed up in 3 different locations. Her face went white. You recorded it. Every room in this house has cameras, Chidinma. I installed them after my laptop went missing last month. I thought we had a thief. He leaned in close, his voice deadly calm. Turns out, I was married to one. The sound of sirens grew louder outside. Chidinma sank to her knees, mascara running down her face. Please, wail. Please. I'll do anything. But Adewale was already walking toward the door to let the police in. And as he opened it, he felt something inside him break and heal at the same time. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. This story is just getting started. What do you think Adewale should do next? Comment below. The police station in Victoria Island smelled of sweat, old coffee, and desperation. Adewale sat across from Detective Ibrahim Musa, a stocky man with kind eyes and 20 years of experience written in the lines of his face. Mr. Okonkwo, Detective Musa began, tapping his pen against a notepad. I've reviewed the security footage. It's disturbing. Your wife deliberately poured boiling water on your mother. That's aggravated assault, possibly attempted murder given your mother's age and disability. Adewale's hands were clasped so tightly his knuckles had gone white. What happens now? We've taken Mrs. Chidinma Okonkwo into custody. She'll be arraigned tomorrow. With the evidence you've provided, the prosecutor will push for a strong case. But Detective Musa leaned back. I have to ask, are you sure you want to go through with this? These cases can get messy. Public. The media will feast on it. My mother almost died, Adewale said flatly. I don't care about the media. Your wife is already talking. She's claiming emotional distress, that your mother made her life hell, that she was provoked. Adewale's jaw tightened. Is that what she's going with? It's a common defense. Judges are sometimes sympathetic, especially if her lawyer paints her as the victim of a toxic household. Detective Musa studied Adewale's face. I'm not saying I believe her. I'm saying be prepared for a fight. I've been fighting my whole life, detective. This is no different. By noon, the story had leaked. Adewale's phone exploded with notifications. Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, everyone had an opinion. At Lagos Gossip Queen, breaking, tech billionaire Adewale Okonkwo's wife arrested for assaulting his mother. The tea is hot beverage fire #Lagos scandal. At Nigerian mums, this is why I tell my sons to be careful who they marry. Money doesn't buy character. Praying for Mom Ngozi folded hands medium Duxkanan. At Chidinma fan club, y'all are so quick to judge. We don't know the full story. What if the mother-in-law really was abusive? #Team Chidinma. Adewale threw his phone across the car seat. His driver, Emeka, glanced at him in the rearview mirror. Oga, you need to rest, Emeka said gently. You haven't slept. I'll rest when my mother is home and safe. They drove to the hospital in silence. When Adewale walked into the ICU, he found Mom Ngozi awake, her eyes clearer but still clouded with pain. A nurse was adjusting her drip. Mama, Adewale pulled a chair close, taking her good hand carefully. How are you feeling? Like an old fool, she said, her voice raspy. I should have seen it coming. Don't say that. None of this is your fault. Mom Ngozi's eyes filled with tears. My son, I heard what you did. The police, the arrest. She hurt you, Mama. She deserves to face consequences. But at what cost? Mom Ngozi's voice broke. Your marriage, your reputation, your peace of mind? My peace of mind ended the moment I saw what she did to you. Mom Ngozi was quiet for a long moment, staring at the ceiling. When your father died, I was so angry. Angry at God, at the world, at your father for leaving us. But I learned something, Adewale. Anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It destroys you from the inside. So what do you want me to do? Forgive her. I want you to be free. Whether that means justice or forgiveness, only you can decide. But don't let hate turn you into someone you're not. Adewale blinked back tears. His mother had always been like this. Too kind, too forgiving. It's what made her beautiful. And vulnerable. I'll think about it, Mama. But first, I need to make sure she can never hurt you again. That evening, Adewale met with his lawyer, Barrister Amina Bello, at her office in Lekki. Amina was a sharp woman in her 40s, known for winning impossible cases. Adewale, she greeted him, pouring him a glass of water. I've reviewed everything. The footage is damning. Chidinma's lawyer is going to have a hard time spinning this. What's the best case scenario? Prison time. 5 to 10 years, given the severity and premeditation. Worst case. She gets a sympathetic judge, pleads emotional distress, and gets probation with mandatory counseling. That's not good enough. Then we make sure the prosecution has everything. Medical reports, witness statements, the footage. We paint a picture of calculated cruelty, not a moment of passion. Amina leaned forward. But Adewale, there's something else you need to know. His stomach tightened. What? Chidinma filed for divorce 2 weeks ago. I just got the papers. The room spun. What? She never served you. My guess. She was planning to leave anyway. This inheritance dispute with your mother might have been her exit strategy. Get the money, then disappear. Adewale felt like he'd been punched. So all of this, the marriage, the smiles, the I love yous, it was all a con? I can't say for certain. But the timing is suspicious. And there's more. Amina slid a folder across the desk. I had a private investigator do some digging. Chidinma has been seeing someone. A man named Tund Adebayo. He's a real estate mogul in Abuja. Adewale opened the folder. Photos spilled out. Chidinma and a tall, handsome man at a restaurant in Abuja, holding hands. Chidinma and the same man entering a hotel. Chidinma laughing, her head thrown back, looking happier than she'd ever looked with Adewale. His hands shook. How long? At least 6 months. Maybe longer. The betrayal cut deeper than he thought possible. It wasn't just the affair. It was the lies, the manipulation, the way she'd smiled at him every morning while planning her escape. What do you want to do? Amina asked gently. Adewale closed the folder, his face hard. I want to bury her. Legally, financially, socially. I want everyone to know exactly who Chidinma Nwachukwu really is. That's a dangerous game, Adewale. Public shaming can backfire. I don't care. She tried to kill my mother. She cheated on me. She's been lying for months, maybe years. She deserves to lose everything, just like she tried to take everything from me. Amina studied him. Revenge is sweet, but it's also exhausting. Are you sure you're ready for this? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The arraignment was set for the next morning at the Lagos High Court. Adewale arrived early, flanked by Amina and 2 security guards. The courthouse steps were swarmed with journalists, cameras flashing like lightning. Mr. Okonkwo, how's your mother? Are you divorcing your wife? Is it true she was having an affair? Adewale ignored them all, his face a mask of stone. Inside the courtroom, he took his seat in the front row. Moments later, Chidinma was led in, wearing an orange prison jumpsuit, her hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked smaller, diminished. When her eyes met his, she mouthed, "I'm sorry." He looked away. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. The charges were read aloud. Grievous bodily harm, assault of a vulnerable person, attempted murder. Chidinma's lawyer, a slick man in a too-tight suit, stood. Your Honor, my client is a victim of psychological abuse. She was provoked by the alleged victim, who repeatedly belittled and humiliated her. Adewale's blood boiled. He gripped the armrest so hard it creaked. The prosecutor, a no-nonsense woman named Mrs. Okafor, stood next. Your Honor, the evidence is clear. The defendant deliberately assaulted a 70-year-old disabled woman with boiling water. This was not a crime of passion. It was premeditated cruelty. The judge reviewed the footage. The courtroom was silent except for the soft gasps of spectators as they watched Chidinma pour the water, as Mom Ngozi's scream echoed through the speakers. When it ended, the judge removed his glasses. Bail is denied. The defendant will remain in custody pending trial. Next hearing is in 3 weeks. The gavel struck. Chidinma's face crumpled. She looked at Adewale, her eyes desperate, pleading. But he stood and walked out without a backward glance. Outside, the media mobbed him again. This time, he stopped. I have a statement, Adewale said, his voice steady. My mother, Mom Ngozi Okonkwo, is a woman who sacrificed everything to give me a future. She is kind, gentle, and forgiving. What was done to her was an act of cruelty that I will never forget. Justice will be served, not because I seek revenge, but but because no one should ever have to suffer like she did. Thank you. He walked away, ignoring the shouted follow-up questions. That night, as he sat beside his mother's hospital bed, she squeezed his hand. I'm proud of you, she whispered. For what? For standing up. But also for not losing yourself. Promise me something, my son. Anything. When this is over, let it go. Don't carry this weight forever. He nodded, but deep down, he wasn't sure if he could keep that promise. Because the fire inside him wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about vengeance. 3 weeks crawled by like a wounded animal. Adewale threw himself into work, but concentration was impossible. Every board meeting, every investor call, every line of code, it all felt hollow compared to the weight pressing on his chest. Mom Ngozi was improving slowly. The doctors said she'd need months of physical therapy, but the burns were healing. The emotional scars, though, those would take much longer. Adewale visited her every evening, bringing her favorite pepper soup from a local restaurant in Surulere, the same place she'd taken him as a child when they could barely afford it. You're spending too much time here, she said one evening, sipping broth carefully. You have a company to run. The company can wait. You can't. Stubborn boy, she smiled, but her eyes were sad. Just like your father. Adewale's phone buzzed. A message from Amina. We need to talk. Urgent. Come to my office. I have to go, Mama. But I'll be back tomorrow morning. Go. And wail. She caught his hand. Whatever you're planning, please don't lose yourself in it. He kissed her forehead, her warning echoing in his ears as he left. Amina's office was dimly lit when Adewale arrived. She sat behind her desk, surrounded by files and documents, her expression grim. What is it? Adewale asked, closing the door. Sit down. He did, tension coiling in his gut. Amina slid a document across the desk. Chidinma's lawyer filed a counterclaim today. She's suing you for emotional distress, defamation, and unlawful imprisonment. She's asking for 50 million naira in damages. Adewale's laugh was bitter. She's suing me? After what she did? It's a tactic. Her lawyer is trying to muddy the waters, make her look like the victim. They're claiming you coerced her into the marriage, that you isolated her from her family, that you used your wealth to control her. That's insane. I gave her everything. I know. But in court, perception matters. They're going to paint you as a controlling, abusive husband who drove her to a breaking point. Amina paused. There's more. They're claiming your mother was verbally abusive. They have WhatsApp messages between Chidinma and her friends where she complained about feeling unwelcome in your home. Adewale stood, pacing. Of course she felt unwelcome. She spent more time shopping than talking to my mother. She barely acknowledged Mama's existence except when she needed something signed. I believe you. But we need to prove it. Do you have any evidence of Chidinma's behavior? Texts, emails, anything that shows her true character? Adewale thought hard. Then he remembered. Her laptop. She left it at the house. Amina's eyes lit up. Get it. Tonight. If there's anything incriminating, we need it before her lawyer thinks to ask for it back. Adewale returned to the Ikoyi mansion alone. The house felt like a mausoleum, every corner haunted by memories. Chidinma's laughter at dinner parties, her perfume lingering in the hallways, the way she'd curled up beside him on the couch. All lies. He went upstairs to the master bedroom. Her things were still there. Designer dresses, jewelry, shoes worth more than most people's yearly salaries. He ignored all of it and went to her vanity desk. The laptop was exactly where she always left it, plugged in and charging. He opened it. Password protected. He tried their anniversary. Wrong. Her birthday. Wrong. Then, on a hunch, he tried. Tunned forever. It unlocked. His stomach turned. Even her password was about her lover. He plugged in a USB drive and started copying files, emails, documents, photos. As the files transferred, he couldn't help but look. There were hundreds of messages between Chidinma and Tund. Chidinma, I can't wait to leave him. Just a few more months and we'll have everything we need. Tund, be patient, my love. Once you get that inheritance signed over, we'll disappear. Dubai, London, wherever you want. Chidinma, his mother is the problem. She sees right through me. I need to find a way to get rid of her. Adewale's vision blurred with rage. Get rid of her. She'd planned this. Not in a moment of anger, but carefully, deliberately. He kept reading. Tund, just play the loving wife. Make him trust you completely. When the time is right, we'll strike. Chidinma, I'm tired of pretending. I hate this house, I hate his boring friends, and I especially hate that old woman in the wheelchair. She looks at me like I'm dirt. Tund, soon, baby. Soon you'll never have to see her again. The USB beeped. Transfer complete. Adewale closed the laptop, his hands shaking. He'd known Chidinma was cruel, but seeing the cold calculation, the months of deception laid out in black and white, it was like swallowing glass. He grabbed the USB and left, locking the house behind him. The next morning, Adewale met with Amina and handed over the drive. Everything you need is on there, he said, his voice hollow. Emails, messages, photos. She was planning this for months. Tund Adebayo was her partner. They were going to take everything and run. Amina plugged in the drive, her eyes scanning the screen. With each message she read, her expression hardened. This changes everything, she said finally. This isn't just assault. This is conspiracy, fraud, attempted theft. We can bury her with this. Do it, Adewale said. I want her to feel what my mother felt. Helpless. Broken. Amina looked at him carefully. Adewale, I need to ask, are you doing this for justice, or for revenge? Does it matter? It does. Because one will bring you peace. The other will consume you. Adewale stared out the window at the Lagos skyline. Maybe I don't want peace. Maybe I just want her to pay. The trial date arrived faster than expected. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, bloggers, curious onlookers. Adewale sat beside Amina, his face a mask of calm. Across the aisle, Chidinma sat with her lawyer, looking thin and exhausted. The prosecutor presented the evidence methodically. The security footage, the medical reports, witness statements from hospital staff. Then came the bombshell. Your Honor, Amina stood, holding a printed stack of documents. We have evidence that this assault was not a crime of passion, but part of a larger conspiracy. The defendant had been planning to defraud Mr. Okonkwo and his mother for months, with the help of her lover, Mr. Tund Adebayo. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Chidinma's face went white. Amina presented the emails, the messages, the photos. Each one was a dagger. The judge read them carefully, his expression growing darker. Chidinma's lawyer jumped up. Your Honor, this evidence was obtained illegally. It was taken from my client's personal laptop without her consent. The laptop was in Mr. Okonkwo's home, Amina countered smoothly. Marital property. He had every right to access it. The judge considered this. I'll allow it. Continue. By the end of the day, Chidinma's defense had collapsed. Her lawyer tried to argue emotional distress, provocation, anything, but the evidence was overwhelming. When the session adjourned, Chidinma tried to approach Adewale in the hallway. Two guards blocked her. Wail, please, she called out, her voice desperate. Let me explain. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I never meant to hurt her. You meant every bit of it, Adewale said coldly. You just didn't mean to get caught. I loved you. Tears streamed down her face. I really did at first. But then, everything changed. You were always working, always focused on your mother. I felt invisible. So you found someone else. Someone who made you feel seen. Adewale's voice was ice. And when my mother stood in the way of your plans, you decided to eliminate her. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Chidinma? Explain it to me. Make me understand how you justified pouring boiling water on a 70-year-old woman. She had no answer. Just sobs. Adewale turned and walked away, Amina beside him. That was brutal, Amina said quietly. She deserved it. Maybe. But be careful, Adewale. Revenge has a price. Make sure you're willing to pay it. That night, Adewale sat in his empty mansion, a glass of whiskey in his hand. The house felt too big, too quiet. He thought about Chidinma's tears, her desperate pleas. And he felt nothing. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You think you've won? This is just the beginning. T.A. Tund Adebayo. Adewale stared at the message, then smiled, a cold, dangerous smile. Come at me, he whispered to the empty room. Let's see who's left standing. The message from Tund sat on Adewale's phone like a coiled snake. He read it over and over, each time his anger sharpening into something colder, more calculated. You think you've won? This is just the beginning. Adewale forwarded it to Detective Musa with a single line. Looks like we have another player in this game. The detective's response came within minutes. Come to the station tomorrow. We need to talk. But Adewale couldn't wait. He called his head of security, a former Nigerian army officer named Colonel Ajayi. I need background on someone, Adewale said. Tund Adebayo. Real estate mogul in Abuja. I want to know everything. His business dealings, his associates, where he gets his money, who he's connected to. How deep do you want me to dig? Colonel Ajayi's voice was gravelly. All the way to hell if that's where the truth is. Consider it done. The next morning, Adewale visited Mom Ngozi before heading to the police station. She was sitting up in bed, looking stronger, her bandages changed to smaller dressings. A physical therapist was helping her with arm exercises. Good morning, Mama. Adewale kissed her cheek. My son, she smiled, though her eyes were searching. You look troubled. More than usual. He showed her the message. Her face fell. Who is T.A.? Tund Adebayo. Chidinma's lover. The man she was planning to run away with. Mom Ngozi was quiet for a long moment. So it goes deeper than we thought. Much deeper. He's threatening me now. I think he's angry I exposed their plan. What will you do? Find out what he's planning. Stop him before he can do any damage. Adewale's jaw tightened. I won't let anyone else hurt you or destroy what I've built. Mom Ngozi reached for his hand. My son, I know you're angry. But promise me you won't become like them. Don't let their darkness change who you are. I promise, Mama, he said, though the words felt like ash in his mouth. At the police station, Detective Musa had news. He laid out several photographs on his desk, Tund Adebayo at various locations, always with different women, always looking expensive and untouchable. Tund Adebayo, Detective Musa began, isn't just a real estate mogul. He's connected to some very powerful people. Politicians, military brass, even a few judges. He's slippery, Adewale. Very slippery. What do you mean? I mean he's been investigated 3 times for fraud, money laundering, and extortion. Each time, the charges mysteriously disappeared. Witnesses recanted. Evidence went missing. Detective Musa leaned back. He's dangerous because he knows how to work the system. So what do? We build a case that's bulletproof. No room for his connections to make it disappear. But that takes time. I don't have time. He's already threatening me. That message could be considered harassment. We can bring him in for questioning. Do it. Detective Musa made a call. Within hours, Tunde Adebayo was picked up at his Abuja hotel and brought to Lagos for questioning. Adewale watched from behind the one-way glass as Tunde sat in the interrogation room. He was everything Adewale wasn't: flashy, arrogant, with gold jewelry and a designer tracksuit that probably cost more than most people's cars. He lounged in the metal chair like he owned the place. Detective Musa entered the room. "Mr. Adebayo, thank you for coming in." "I didn't have a choice," Tunde said lazily. "Your officers were very insistent. We need to ask you about your relationship with Mrs. Chidinma Okonkwo." Tunde smirked. "Chidinma? Beautiful woman. Smart too. What about her? Are you aware she's currently facing charges for assault and attempted murder?" "I heard something about that. Tragic, really. But what does it have to do with me?" "We have evidence that you and Mrs. Okonkwo were planning to defraud her husband. Emails, messages, financial records." Tunde's smirk didn't falter. "Detective, I'm a businessman. I have many associates, many conversations. If Chidinma said something in the heat of passion, that's her issue, not mine. I never asked her to do anything illegal. So you're denying any involvement in the assault?" "Absolutely. I wasn't even in Lagos that day. I was in Abuja closing a deal. I have witnesses, receipts, everything you need." Tunde leaned forward, his eyes cold. "Detective, I think you're wasting your time. Chidinma made her own choices. I'm just a man who enjoyed her company." Detective Musa slid a printed email across the table. "This is from you to Mrs. Okonkwo. Dated 3 days before the assault. You wrote, 'Do whatever it takes to get that signature. I don't care how.'" Tunde barely glanced at it. "That was about a business deal. A property transaction. Nothing to do with her family drama." "A property transaction that required her mother-in-law's signature?" "I don't remember the details." Behind the glass, Adewale's fists clenched. Tunde was smooth, practiced. He'd done this before. Detective Musa tried different angles, but Tunde deflected everything with the ease of someone who'd been coached by expensive lawyers. After an hour, they had to let him go. No concrete evidence directly linking him to the assault. As Tunde walked out of the station, he stopped at the window where Adewale stood watching. Somehow, he knew. He looked directly at the glass and mouthed, "See you soon." That evening, Colonel Ajayi delivered his report. Adewale sat in his study, reading through page after page of Tunde's dark history. Real estate fraud. Shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Money laundering through construction projects. Connections to a senator facing corruption charges. And most damning, 3 women who'd filed restraining orders against him for harassment and threats. All 3 cases settled quietly out of court. "He's a predator," Colonel Ajayi said. "He finds vulnerable women, usually married to wealthy men, seduces them, and uses them to get access to money. Chidinma wasn't his first, and she won't be his last." "How do we stop him?" "Legally. Very difficult. He covers his tracks well. But there's another way." Colonel Ajayi hesitated. "Information warfare. We leak his history to the press, to his business partners, to the politicians who protect him. We make him radioactive." "Do it," Adewale said without hesitation. "I want everyone to know what kind of man he is." Within 48 hours, Nigerian social media exploded. Anonymous accounts posted detailed threads about Tunde Adebayo's schemes. Journalists received mysterious packages containing financial records. Bloggers wrote exposés titled "The Playboy Predator of Abuja." Tunde's carefully constructed image began to crumble. Business partners distanced themselves. The senator who'd protected him issued a statement denying any close relationship. Hotels in Abuja and Lagos banned him. But Tunde wasn't going down quietly. 3 days after the leaks began, Adewale's company headquarters in Victoria Island received a bomb threat. The building was evacuated. Police swept every floor. No bomb was found, but the message was clear. Then his personal bank accounts were hacked. Nothing was stolen, the security was too good, but it was another warning. Then came the final blow. A video leaked online. Grainy security footage from a hotel in Accra, showing Adewale and a woman entering a room together. The timestamp was from 2 years ago, during a tech conference. The woman wasn't Chidinma. The caption read, "Tech billionaire preaches morality while cheating on his wife." #hypocrite betrayal. Adewale stared at the video in his office, his blood running cold. He remembered that night. The woman was Yatund, a fellow entrepreneur he'd collaborated with. They'd met in her hotel room to review a business proposal that ran late. Nothing happened. They ordered room service, worked until 2 a.m., then he left. But the footage was edited to look damning. The timestamp showed him entering at 11 p.m. The part where he left at 2 a.m. was cut out. His phone rang. "Amina. Have you seen it?" she asked urgently. "I'm looking at it now. Adewale, this is bad. Twitter is on fire. People are calling you a hypocrite, saying you drove Chidinma to Tund because you were cheating first." "But I didn't." "I know. But perception is reality in the court of public opinion. We need to respond immediately. Do you have the full footage? Anything that proves nothing happened. The hotel might. It was the Kempinski in Accra, 2 years ago. I'll contact them. In the meantime, say nothing publicly. Don't defend yourself on social media. Let me handle this." After she hung up, Adewale sat in the darkness of his office, watching the sun set over Lagos. The city lights began to twinkle, indifferent to his crisis. His phone buzzed. Another message from Tund. "Checkmate. Maybe you should have left well enough alone." Adewale's anger transformed into something sharper. He'd been playing defense. Time to attack. He called Colonel Ajayi. "I need a meeting with Tund Adebayo. Private. No police, no lawyers." "That's dangerous." "I don't care. Set it up." 2 days later, Adewale met Tund at a private club in Lekki, the kind where the rich and powerful made deals away from prying eyes. The club owner owed Adewale a favor, so the meeting room was swept for bugs and cameras. Tund arrived 20 minutes late, dressed in a crisp white agbada, looking every bit the successful businessman. He sat across from Adewale with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You wanted to see me," Tund said. "I'm honored." "Cut the act," Adewale replied coldly. "What do you want?" "Want? I don't want anything. I already have everything I need." "Then why are you coming after me?" "Chidinma made her choices. She's facing the consequences. You should walk away while you still can." Tund laughed. "Walk away? You destroyed the woman I love. You had her arrested, humiliated, locked up like an animal. You think I'm just going to let that slide? She tried to murder my mother. Your mother was in the way. Chidinma and I had plans, a future. You and that old woman ruined everything." Tund leaned forward, his voice dropping to a hiss. "So now I'm going to ruin you. Your reputation, your business, your peace of mind. I'm going to take everything from you, just like you took Chidinma from me." Adewale met his gaze steadily. "You think you're the first person to threaten me? I built my company from nothing. I've faced competitors, corrupt officials, economic crashes. You're just another obstacle." "I'm not an obstacle, Adewale. I'm a wrecking ball." Tund stood, buttoning his agbada. "Enjoy your empire while it lasts. Because I'm going to burn it to the ground." He walked out, leaving Adewale alone in the silent room. For the first time since this nightmare began, Adewale felt something like fear creeping into his chest. Not fear of losing money or status. Fear that he'd unleashed something he couldn't control. That night, Adewale couldn't sleep. He sat in his study, nursing a glass of whiskey, when his phone rang. It was Yatund, the woman from the hotel video. "Adewale," her voice was shaking. "I just saw the video. I'm so sorry. I've been getting death threats. People are calling me a homewrecker. Tund, I'm sorry you're caught up in this. I'm going to fix it. How? The damage is done. My husband saw it. He knows nothing happened, but his family doesn't believe him. They're saying I ruined your marriage. She was crying now. Why is this happening? Because someone wants to destroy me, and he doesn't care who gets hurt in the process. After he hung up, Adewale made a decision. He couldn't fight Tund with just lawyers and police. He needed to fight fire with fire. He called Colonel Ajayi. I need to know where Tund is vulnerable. Not just business. Personal. What does he care about? Who does he love? Sir, that's a dangerous road. I don't care. Find his weakness. Everyone has one. As dawn broke over Lagos, Adewale stood at his window, watching the city wake up. Somewhere out there, Tund was planning his next move. But so was Adewale. And only one of them would walk away from this war. Colonel Ajayi's report landed on Adewale's desk 3 days later, a thick manila envelope that felt heavier than it should. Inside were photographs, financial documents, and a handwritten note. You were right. Everyone has a weakness. His is on page 12. Adewale flipped through the pages, his eyes scanning quickly until he reached page 12. There, staring back at him, was a photograph of a young girl, maybe 16 or 17, in a school uniform. Beautiful, with Tund's eyes and smile. The caption beneath read, Ominat Adebayo, daughter, living with her mother in Kaduna, attending Queen's College. Tund sends money monthly but hasn't visited in 3 years. Adewale stared at the photo for a long time. A daughter. Tund had a daughter he'd abandoned. His phone rang. Colonel Ajayi. Did you read it? The colonel asked. I did. The mother, Fatima Adebayo, she's a teacher. Tund got her pregnant when she was in university, promised to marry her, then disappeared when he moved to Abuja. She raised Ominat alone. He sends money to keep her quiet, but he's never acknowledged the girl publicly. Probably bad for his playboy image. Adewale felt something twist in his chest. She doesn't know her father. She knows who he is. But he's never been part of her life. According to my sources, the girl is brilliant. Top of her class. She wants to study engineering at MIT, but they can't afford it. Adewale closed the folder. Thank you, Colonel. I'll take it from here. After he hung up, Adewale sat in silence, thinking about his own mother, about everything she'd sacrificed to give him a future. He thought about Mom Ngozi pushing that charcoal cart across shaky bridges, working until her hands bled, also he could have a chance. And he thought about Tund, who had a daughter he'd thrown away like garbage. An idea began to form. Not revenge, something else. Something that might actually break Tund in a way money and public humiliation couldn't. Adewale flew to Kaduna the next morning, alone. He found Fatima Adebayo's house in a modest neighborhood, a small bungalow with a neat garden. When she opened the door, she was cautious, her eyes wary. Mrs. Adebayo? My name is Adewale Okonkwo. I need to talk to you about Tund. Her face hardened. I don't want anything to do with that man. Whatever he's done, it's not my problem. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to help your daughter. That got her attention. She studied him for a long moment, then stepped aside. Come in. Inside, the house was clean but worn, filled with books and Amanat school awards on every wall. Fatima made tea, her movements precise and controlled. You're the tech billionaire, she said finally. I've seen you on the news. You're the one whose wife. She stopped, uncomfortable. Yes, Adewale said simply. And Tund was involved. He and my wife were planning to steal from my family. When it went wrong, he's been trying to destroy me. Fatima's expression didn't change. That sounds like Tund. He destroys everything he touches. I know about Ominat. I know Tund sends money but has never been a father to her. Fatima's hands tightened around her teacup. What do you want? I want to give Aminat the future she deserves. I have a scholarship foundation. I can arrange for her to study engineering at any university she wants, MIT, Cambridge, wherever. Full ride, living expenses, everything. Why? Fatima's voice was sharp. What do you get out of this? Nothing. Except maybe the knowledge that I prevented Tund from ruining another life. And what do you want from us in return? Adewale met her eyes. I want you to let me introduce Aminat to her father. Publicly. I want the world to see the daughter he abandoned while he was living his playboy lifestyle. Fatima was quiet for a long time. You want to humiliate him. I want to expose who he really is. A man who abandons his responsibilities while lecturing others about morality. And what does Aminat get out of being used as a weapon? A father who might finally have to face what he's done. And a future that doesn't depend on his guilt money. Adewale leaned forward. Mrs. Adebayo, I lost my father when I was 12. My mother raised me alone, sacrificed everything. I know what it's like to grow up without a father. But I also know that sometimes, confronting the people who hurt us is the only way to move forward. Fatima looked toward the hallway, where Aminat's room was. She doesn't talk about him much. But I know it hurts her. Every Father's Day, every graduation, every award ceremony, she watches her friends with their fathers and she pretends it doesn't matter. But it does. Then let me help. Not for revenge. For her. Fatima wiped her eyes. I'll talk to her. If she agrees, then we'll do it. But only if it's her choice. Aminat came home from school an hour later, a tall, slender girl with her mother's grace and her father's sharp intelligence. When she walked into the living room and saw Adewale, confusion crossed her face. Mama? What's going on? Fatima explained everything, who Adewale was, what Tund had done, the scholarship offer, the proposal. Aminat listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. When Fatima finished, Aminat was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked at Adewale. You want to use me to hurt my father? I want to give you the opportunity to meet him. What happens after that is up to you. Why should I meet him? He's had 17 years to find me. He chose not to. You're right. But maybe it's time he faced that choice. And maybe it's time you got the closure you deserve. Aminat's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained steady. What if I meet him and he rejects me again? What if seeing me doesn't change anything? Then at least you'll know. And you'll still have the scholarship, the future, everything you've worked for. He doesn't get to take that from you. Aminat looked at her mother, who nodded gently. Okay, Aminat said finally. I'll do it. But I'm not doing it for revenge. I'm doing it because I want to look him in the eye and ask him why I wasn't enough. Adewale felt something break inside his chest. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth. 1 week later, Adewale arranged a press conference. He told the media it would be a major announcement about his company's new scholarship initiative. Every major news outlet in Nigeria showed up. Tund was in Abuja when he heard about it. He called Adewale immediately. What are you playing at? Tund's voice was sharp. You'll see, Adewale said calmly. I suggest you watch. If you're planning to drag me through the mud again. This isn't about you, Tund. For once in your life, this is about someone else. The press conference was held at Adewale's company headquarters in Victoria Island. Journalists packed the room, cameras rolling. Adewale stood at the podium, Aminat and Fatima beside him. Thank you all for coming, Adewale began. Today, I'm announcing the launch of the Mama Ngozi Okonkwo Scholarship Foundation, dedicated to providing full university scholarships to brilliant young Africans who lack the financial means to pursue their dreams. Applause filled the room. Our first recipient is Aminat Adebayo, a top student from Queen's College in Kaduna. Aminat wants to study engineering at MIT, and we're going to make that happen. More applause. Cameras flashed. But Adewale wasn't done. Aminat is also the daughter of a man many of you know, Tunde Adebayo, the real estate mogul from Abuja. The room went silent. Journalists exchanged glances. Mr. Adebayo has financially supported Aminat but has never publicly acknowledged her existence. Today, we're changing that. Aminat deserves to be seen, to be known, to be proud of who she is. He stepped aside, and Aminat moved to the microphone. She was nervous but composed. "My name is Aminat Adebayo," she said, her voice clear. "For 17 years, I've wondered why my father didn't want me. I've made excuses for him, told myself he was busy, that he had his reasons. But the truth is simpler. He was ashamed of me." Her voice cracked, but she continued. "I don't need his approval anymore. I don't need him to validate my worth. But I want him to know that I exist, that I matter, that he can't just pretend I'm not here." She looked directly into the cameras. "Daddy, if you're watching this, I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to be free of the pain you caused. But I also want you to know that you missed out on knowing an amazing daughter. And that's your loss, not mine." The room erupted, journalists shouting questions, cameras flashing like lightning. Fatima put her arm around Aminat, tears streaming down both their faces. Adewale stood back, watching. He'd expected to feel satisfaction, triumph. Instead, he felt something gentler, sadness for the years Aminat had lost, admiration for her courage, and hope that maybe, just maybe, this could be the beginning of healing. In Abuja, Tunde watched the press conference on his laptop, his face pale. His phone exploded with calls, journalists, business associates, friends demanding explanations. He ignored them all, staring at the screen, at his daughter's face, at the words she'd spoken. "You missed out on knowing an amazing daughter." For the first time in years, Tunde Adebayo felt something crack inside his carefully constructed armor. And he realized that Adewale had done something far worse than destroying his reputation. He'd forced Tunde to look at the man he'd become. The press conference went viral within hours. #Aminat Adebayo trended on Twitter for 3 days straight. News outlets across Africa picked up the story. Opinion pieces debated everything from deadbeat fathers to the power of public accountability. But the most surprising response came from someone Adewale hadn't expected, Chidinma. She called him from prison, her voice small and broken. "Well, I saw what you did. For that girl. What do you want, Chidinma? I wanted to say you're a good man. Better than I deserved." She paused. "Tunde called me. He's a mess. Journalists are camped outside his house. His business partners are dropping him. His political friends won't return his calls. And I realized something. He used me just like I used you. We were both playing games, but you're the only one who was real." Adewale felt no satisfaction. "Is that supposed to make me forgive you?" "No. Nothing can do that. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Not because I got caught, but because I hurt the 2 people who actually cared about me, you and your mother. My mother almost died, Chidinma. I know." Her voice broke. "I live with that every day. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face, the water, the screaming. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I needed you to know that I'm sorry." The line went quiet for a moment. "How is she?" Chidinma asked softly. "Your mother. Getting stronger. The doctors say she'll make a full recovery, physically at least. Tell her I'm sorry. I know it doesn't matter, but tell her anyway." "I will." After they hung up, Adewale sat in his office, staring at the Lagos skyline. Chidinma's apology felt genuine, but it didn't erase what she'd done. Some wounds ran too deep for words to heal. 3 days after the press conference, Adewale received an unexpected visitor at his office. His secretary buzzed him. "Sir, there's a Mr. Tunde Adebayo here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent." Adewale's jaw tightened. "Send him in." Tunde entered looking nothing like the confident man from the club. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. He'd aged a decade in a week. "You destroyed me," Tunde said without preamble. "You destroyed yourself. I just turned on the lights. My daughter won't return my calls. My business is in ruins. My political connections have cut me off. You took everything. You took everything from yourself when you abandoned your child. I just made sure the world knew about it." Tunde collapsed into a chair, his face in his hands. "I called her. Ominat. 15 times. She blocked my number. Can you blame her?" "No." Tunde looked up, and for the first time, Adewale saw genuine pain in his eyes. "I watched that press conference 100 times. Every time she said I missed out on knowing her. She's right. I did miss out. I was so busy building my empire, maintaining my image, that I forgot I had a daughter who needed me. So what do you want from me? Sympathy. I want you to help me fix this." Adewale laughed bitterly. "You came to me for help? After everything you've done? You're the only one who can. Ominat won't talk to me, but she trusts you. You gave her a future. Maybe you can give me a chance to be her father." "You don't deserve a chance." "I know." Tunde's voice broke. "But she deserves a father who's trying. Even if I'm 17 years late." Adewale studied him for a long moment. "You threatened me. You leaked fake videos trying to destroy my reputation. You encouraged Chidinma to hurt my mother. Why would I help you? Because you're better than me. Because you understand what it's like to love your mother, to have someone who believes in you. Ominat doesn't have that. She deserves to have it, even if it comes from a broken man like me." The silence stretched between them. Finally, Adewale spoke. "If I do this, and that's a massive if, it's not for you. It's for Ominat. She deserves to make her own choice about whether to forgive you. That's all I'm asking. But you need to understand something. If you hurt her again, if you disappoint her, if you make promises you don't keep, I will make sure you regret it. The press conference was just the beginning. I can make your life much worse." Tunde nodded, his shoulders sagging. "I understand." Adewale picked up his phone and called Fatima. The conversation was brief. "Fatima says Ominat will meet you. Once. 1 hour, supervised, at a neutral location. If you blow this chance, there won't be another one." Tunde's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. Don't thank me. Just be the father she deserves. Starting now." The meeting was arranged for the following Saturday at a quiet cafe in Abuja. Adewale drove Ominat there himself, with Fatima in the back seat. The girl was nervous, her hands twisting in her lap. "What if he disappoints me again?" Ominat asked. "Then you'll survive it," Adewale said gently. "You've survived 17 years without him. But maybe, just maybe, he's finally ready to be the father you needed." "Why are you doing this?" "Helping him, I mean. He tried to destroy you. Because this isn't about me or him. It's about you. And because my mother taught me that everyone deserves a chance at redemption. Even people who don't deserve it." They arrived at the cafe early. Tunde was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking terrified. When he saw Ominat, he stood so quickly he knocked over his water glass. Adewale and Fatima stayed at a nearby table, giving them space but remaining close enough to intervene if needed. Ominat sat across from her father, her back straight, her expression guarded. "Hi," Tunde said, his voice shaking. "Hello. You look so much like your mother. And like me, I guess." He tried to smile, but it came out wrong. "I'm told I have your eyes." "You do. But your strength, That's all your mother. Silence. Uncomfortable and heavy. Why? Ominat finally asked. Why didn't you want me? Tun's composure crumbled. Tears streamed down his face. I was young and stupid and selfish. I was building my business, obsessed with success, with image. A daughter didn't fit into that picture. So I convinced myself you were better off without me. Were we? Financially? Maybe. I sent money. But emotionally? No. You deserved a father who showed up, who cared, who was there for school plays and graduations and bad days. I robbed you of that, and I can never give those years back. So why now? Because Mr. Okonkwo exposed you. Yes and no. The exposure made me face what I'd done. But watching you at that press conference, hearing you say you forgave me, I realized I'd been given a gift I didn't deserve. A daughter who's strong enough to forgive a man who abandoned her. I don't want to waste that gift. Aminat's eyes glistened. I don't know if I can trust you. I don't expect you to. Trust is earned, and I haven't earned anything from you. But if you'll let me, I want to start. Today. Right now. I want to know you. Your favorite subjects, your dreams, what makes you laugh, what scares you. I want to be your father, even if I have to learn how. Ominat was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I like mathematics. And physics. I want to design bridges that connect communities. I laugh at bad jokes, and I'm scared of failure. I'm scared that no matter how hard I work, I'll never be enough. You're already more than enough, Tun said fiercely. You're brilliant and brave and kind. You're everything I'm not. And if you let me, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of being called your father. Ominat wiped her eyes. This is going to take time. Years, maybe. And if you mess this up, I won't. I swear on everything I have left I won't. From across the cafe, Adewale watched as father and daughter continued talking, their voices low but gradually warming. Fatima was crying quietly beside him. You gave her something I never could, Fatima said. The courage to face him. She already had that courage. I just gave her the platform. Later that evening, back in Lagos, Adewale visited his mother at the rehabilitation center where she was doing physical therapy. Mom Ngozi was walking with a cane now, her burns healing into scars that would fade with time. How did it go? She asked as he helped her into a chair. Better than expected. Tund and Ominat talked. Really talked. I think there's a chance for them. Mama Ngozi smiled. You did a good thing, my son. Did I? I destroyed Tun's life to expose him. You didn't destroy his life. You revealed the truth. What he does with that truth is up to him. She took his hand. You could have used that girl for pure revenge. Instead, you gave her a scholarship, a future, and the father she needed. That's not vengeance. That's justice tempered with mercy. I'm tired, Mama. Tired of fighting, of being angry, of carrying all this weight. Then put it down. Chidinma is going to prison. Tund is facing his demons. You've done everything you needed to do. Now it's time to heal. How? By forgiving. Not for them, for you. Anger is a heavy burden, Adewale. It will crush you if you carry it forever. He rested his head on her shoulder, feeling like a child again. I don't know if I can. You can. Because you're my son. And I raised you to be strong enough to let go. That night, Adewale couldn't sleep. He sat on his balcony overlooking Lagos, the city lights stretching to infinity. His phone buzzed, a message from Ominat. Thank you for today. I don't know what will happen with my dad, but at least now I have a chance to find out. You gave me that. I'll never forget it. Adewale smiled for the first time in weeks. Maybe Mom Ngozi was right. Maybe redemption was possible, even in the darkest situations. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was from Tund. I know I don't deserve your help. But thank you. For Ominat. For giving me a chance to be better. I won't waste it. Adewale stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed a simple response. Don't thank me. Thank your daughter. She's the one who's giving you grace. He put his phone down and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Chidinma was in prison, paying for her crimes. Tund was rebuilding his relationship with his daughter. Ominat was preparing for MIT. And Adewale? He was finally learning that justice and revenge weren't the same thing. One destroyed. The other healed. The trial date arrived on a Tuesday morning, grey and heavy with rain. The kind of Lagos rain that pounds the earth like judgment. Adewale stood outside the Lagos High Court, watching water pour off the colonial-era building's edges, and wondered if this was how closure felt, cold and relentless. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Journalists lined the back rows. Curious onlookers filled the gallery. Chidinma sat at the defendant's table, thinner than Adewale remembered, her orange prison uniform a stark contrast to the designer clothes she'd once lived in. Her lawyer, a middle-aged woman named Mrs. Okoro, whispered urgently in her ear. Adewale took his seat behind the prosecution, with Amina beside him. Mom Ngozi had insisted on coming despite her doctor's protests. She sat in her wheelchair, wrapped in a purple shawl, her eyes sad but resolute. All rise, the bailiff announced. Judge Adelik entered, a stern woman in her 60s known for her no-nonsense approach. She surveyed the room with sharp eyes before sitting. This court is now in session. The state versus Chidinma Nwachukwu Okonkwo. The defendant is charged with aggravated assault, grievous bodily harm, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Judge Adelik adjusted her glasses. How does the defendant plead? Chidinma stood, her voice barely audible. Guilty, Your Honor. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Adewale felt his breath catch. He'd expected her to fight, to maintain her innocence. Judge Adelik raised an eyebrow. You're pleading guilty to all charges? Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Okoro, is your client aware of the implications? She is, Your Honor. My client wishes to take full responsibility for her actions. The prosecution looked surprised but pleased. The prosecutor, Mrs. Okafor, stood. Your Honor, in light of the defendant's guilty plea, we ask that the court consider the severity of the crime. The victim, Mrs. Ngozi Okonkwo, is a 70-year-old disabled woman who suffered second-degree burns across 15% of her body. This was not a crime of passion but a calculated attack. Your Honor, Mrs. Okoro interjected, while my client acknowledges her guilt, we ask the court to consider mitigating factors. Mrs. Chidinma Okonkwo has no prior criminal record. She has shown genuine remorse. And the victim herself has requested leniency. Adewale's he snapped toward his mother. Mom Ngozi sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap, her expression peaceful. Is this true? Judge Adelik asked. Mrs. Ngozi Okonkwo, did you request leniency for the defendant? Mom Ngozi nodded slowly. A court officer wheeled her forward to the witness stand. She raised her right hand for the oath, her voice steady despite its frailty. Mrs. Okonkwo, Judge Adelik said gently, you understand that the defendant caused you severe physical harm? Yes, Your Honor. And you understand that she conspired with another individual to defraud your family? Yes, Your Honor. Yet you're asking this court to show mercy? Mom Ngozi looked directly at Chidinma, who had tears streaming down her face. Your Honor, I am an old woman. I've lived a long life, seen much suffering, and learned that hatred only breeds more hatred. My son wanted justice, and justice has been served. Chidinma has admitted her guilt. She will carry the weight of what she did for the rest of her life. That is punishment enough. With all due respect, Mrs. Okonkwo, the judge said, the law requires more than guilt and remorse. It requires consequences. I understand. But I also understand that prison will not heal my scars, and vengeance will not restore my son's peace of mind. Mom Ngozi's voice grew stronger. If this court allows it, I ask that Chidinma receive a sentence that includes community service at a women's shelter, helping other women who have suffered domestic violence. Let her pain be transformed into purpose. The courtroom fell silent. Even the journalists had stopped typing. Adewale stared at his mother in disbelief. After everything Chidinma had done, the betrayal, the violence, the conspiracy, Mom Ngozi was still offering grace. Judge Adeleke studied Mom Ngozi for a long moment. Your forgiveness is remarkable, Mrs. Okonkwo. But the state has an interest in punishing criminal behavior, regardless of the victim's wishes. I understand, Your Honor. I'm not asking you to dismiss the charges. I'm asking you to remember that we are all capable of terrible things when we lose our way. And that sometimes, mercy can change a life in ways punishment cannot. Judge Adeleke turned to Chidinma. Do you have anything to say before I pass sentence? Chidinma stood, trembling. Your Honor, I don't deserve Mom Ngozi's forgiveness. I don't deserve her mercy. What I did was unforgivable. I let greed and jealousy turn me into a monster. Her voice broke. I look back at who I was, and I don't recognize myself. The woman who poured that water, I don't know her. But I have to own her actions because they're mine. She turned to face Mom Ngozi directly. Mama, you were nothing but kind to me. You welcomed me into your family, and I repaid you with cruelty. I can't undo what I did. I can't take back the pain. But if you're asking this court to give me a chance to do something good with my life, I promise you, I won't waste it. I'll spend every day trying to be worthy of the grace you've shown me. Chidinma's legs gave out, and she collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Judge Adeleke removed her glasses, cleaning them slowly while the courtroom waited in tense silence. Finally, she spoke. This is one of the most difficult cases I've presided over. Not because of the legal complexity, but because of the moral complexity. The law is clear. Aggravated assault of a vulnerable person carries a sentence of 5 to 15 years. Conspiracy to commit fraud adds additional time. She looked at Mom Ngozi. But the law also allows for judicial discretion, particularly when the victim advocates for mercy and the defendant shows genuine remorse. Judge Adeleke put her glasses back on. Mrs. Chidinma Nwachukwu Okonkwo, I hereby sentence you to 7 years imprisonment, with 3 years suspended. You will serve 4 years in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. During your probation, you will complete 1,000 hours of community service at women's shelters, speaking about domestic violence and emotional abuse. The gavel struck. Court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, rain still fell, but lighter now, more like tears than judgment. Adewale helped his mother into the car while journalists shouted questions he didn't answer. Once they were inside, driving through Lagos traffic, Mom Ngozi reached for his hand. You're angry with me, she said softly. I don't understand, Mama. After what she did to you, how can you forgive her? Because I've learned something in my 70 years, my son. Unforgiveness is a prison we build for ourselves. I could spend the rest of my life hating Chidinma, replaying that moment over and over, feeding my anger until it consumed me. Or I could let it go. She tried to kill you. And she will live with that for the rest of her life. Every time she looks in a mirror, she'll see the woman who hurt a defenseless old woman. That is her real sentence. Mom Ngozi squeezed his hand. But I refuse to let her actions turn me into someone bitter and vengeful. That would mean she won. She would have taken more from me than my skin. She would have taken my peace. Adewale's eyes burned with unshed tears. I wanted her to suffer. I know. And part of me did too. But then I remembered something your father told me before he died. He said, Ngozi, in this life, you can choose to be right, or you can choose to be free. Rarely can you be both. What does that mean? It means I was right. Chidinma wronged me terribly. But holding on to that rightness would have made me a prisoner to my pain. So I chose freedom instead. They drove in silence for a while, the windshield wipers keeping rhythm with Adewale's thoughts. "Do you think she'll really change?" he asked finally. "I don't know. That's up to her. But I gave her a chance. What she does with it is between her and God." That evening, Adewale received a call from Tunde Adebayo. "I heard about the sentencing," Tunde said. "Your mother is a remarkable woman." "She is. I wanted you to know. I've been thinking about what happened. About my part in all of this. I encouraged Chidinma to get that inheritance signature. I didn't tell her to hurt your mother, but I created the environment where that desperation could grow." "Where are you going with this, Tunde?" "I'm going to the police. I'm going to confess my involvement in the conspiracy. I should have done it weeks ago, but I was too much of a coward." Adewale was silent, processing this. "I've spent my whole life running from consequences," Tunde continued. "Using my connections, my money, my charm to avoid accountability. But my daughter asked me something yesterday that I couldn't answer." "What did she ask?" "She asked me, 'Daddy, how can I trust you if you don't hold yourself accountable?' And she was right. How can I be the father she deserves if I'm still the same man who abandoned her?" "The police will arrest you." "I know. I'll probably face charges. But at least I'll be able to look Ominat in the eye and tell her I'm trying to be better." After they hung up, Adewale sat on his balcony, watching the city lights flicker through the rain. Two people, Chidinma and Tunde, who had caused him and his mother so much pain, were now facing their consequences. Not because he'd forced them to, but because Mom Ngozi's grace had shown them a different way. His phone buzzed. A text from Amina. "Your mother is wiser than all of us. She just gave us a masterclass in how to win without destroying yourself in the process." Adewale smiled slightly. Maybe his mother was right. Maybe mercy was a form of power he'd never understood before. 2 weeks later, Adewale stood on a construction site in Makoko, the floating slum where his mother had once lived. Around him, workers were building a community center, a place for job training, education, and healthcare. The sign above the entrance read, "Mom Ngozi Community Center, where healing begins." Mom Ngozi sat in her wheelchair, watching the construction, her eyes bright. "This is too much, my son," she said, though her smile betrayed her joy. "It's not enough. It will never be enough for what you sacrificed for me. I didn't sacrifice anything. I invested in you. And now you're giving back. That's the cycle of love." A young woman approached, one of the social workers who would staff the center. "Mrs. Okonkwo, we just received our first client. A woman with burn scars, like yours. She heard about the center and wants help." Mom Ngozi's eyes filled with tears. "Then let's not keep her waiting." As they wheeled Mom Ngozi toward the center, Adewale hung back, watching. His mother, scarred but unbroken, heading toward her purpose. He thought about Chidinma in prison, about Tunde rebuilding his relationship with Ominat, about Ominat preparing for MIT. Everyone was on a journey toward redemption. Some would make it. Some wouldn't. But at least now they all had a chance. His phone rang. It was Detective Musa. "Mr. Okonkwo, I thought you should know. Tunde Adebayo turned himself in this morning. He gave us everything. Financial records, communications, the whole conspiracy. He's cooperating fully. What will happen to him? Probably reduced charges because of his cooperation. Maybe 2 years. But he'll have a record. His political career is over." "Good," Adewale said, but he felt no triumph. Just exhaustion. "There's something else," Detective Musa continued. "We discovered some accounts Tunde set up, offshore accounts meant to launder money he and Chidinma stole. The money's still there. About 40 million naira. It technically belongs to you, as restitution." Adewale thought for a moment. "Donate it. To women's shelters, organizations fighting domestic violence, charities helping abandoned children. Split it equally." "You're sure?" "I'm sure." I don't want anything that came from that betrayal. Let it do some good instead. After hanging up, Adewale walked into the community center. Inside, his mother was sitting with the burned woman, holding her hand, speaking softly. The woman was crying, but they were healing tears, the kind that wash away pain instead of drowning in it. Mom Ngozi looked up and saw her son. She smiled, and in that smile, Adewale saw everything he needed to know about love, forgiveness, and what it meant to truly overcome. Some battles were won with strength. Others were won with grace. And his mother had just taught him that the second kind was far more powerful. 3 months after the trial, Adewale stood in the arrivals hall of Murtala Muhammad International Airport, holding a sign that read, Aminat Adebayo, welcome home. The airport buzzed with the usual Lagos chaos, travelers shouting, porters dodging through crowds, the smell of suya and exhaust mixing in the humid air. But Adewale barely noticed. He was watching for a young woman he'd only met a handful of times but who had somehow become important to his journey. Aminat emerged through the doors, pulling a suitcase, her MIT acceptance letter framed and visible in her carry-on bag. When she spotted Adewale, her face broke into a radiant smile. Uncle Whale. She'd started calling him that after the press conference, and he'd never corrected her. They hugged, and Adewale felt something he hadn't felt in months. Pure, uncomplicated joy. How does it feel? He asked, gesturing to the acceptance letter. Like a dream. Like I'm going to wake up and it'll all disappear. Her eyes shimmered with tears. I keep thinking about everything that's happened. 6 months ago, I was just a girl in Kaduna with big dreams and no way to reach them. Now you're about to study at one of the best universities in the world. Because of you. Because of you, Adewale corrected. I just opened a door. You're the one who earned the right to walk through it. They drove to Mom Ngozi's rehabilitation center, where a surprise party was waiting. The community center's grand opening had been moved up specifically so Aminat could attend before flying to America. When they arrived, the place was transformed. Balloons, banners, music playing from speakers. Dozens of women from the shelter lined up to meet Aminat, each one with their own story of survival, each one seeing in this young girl a reflection of their own dreams. Mom Ngozi sat at the center of it all, looking stronger than she had in months, her burns now faded to silver scars that caught the afternoon light. Aminat. Mom Ngozi called out, opening her arms. Aminat rushed over and embraced her carefully. Mom Ngozi, thank you for everything. For showing me what real strength looks like. Child, you already had that strength. I just reminded you it was there. Later, during the ceremony, Adewale gave a speech. He spoke about his mother's sacrifice, about betrayal and redemption, about how the darkest moments could sometimes lead to the brightest transformations. 6 months ago, he said, his voice carrying across the packed room, I thought my world was ending. My wife had betrayed me, hurt my mother, conspired to steal everything I'd built. I was consumed by anger, by the need for revenge. He paused, looking at Mom Ngozi. But my mother taught me something crucial. She taught me that we have a choice in how we respond to pain. We can let it turn us into monsters, or we can let it make us more human. Adewale's eyes found Aminat in the crowd. And sometimes, the people we least expect become our teachers. Aminat, you showed me that redemption isn't about the person who hurt us changing. It's about us choosing not to be defined by that hurt. Applause filled the room. Aminat wiped her eyes, and beside her, Tunde Adebayo stood quietly, wearing a simple shirt and jeans instead of his usual designer clothes. He'd been released on bail pending his trial, but he'd spent every day since his confession trying to rebuild his relationship with his daughter. After the speeches, Tunde approached Adewale, extending his hand. Thank you, Tunde said simply, for giving me a chance to be a father. Adewale shook his hand, studying the man's face. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something humbler, more genuine. Don't thank me. Thank Aminat. She's the one who decided you were worth the effort. I know. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving she made the right choice. Tund paused. My trial is next month. My lawyer says I'll probably get 2 years, given my cooperation. What will you do after? Start over. Rebuild my relationship with Ominat. Maybe work with troubled youth, kids growing up without fathers. Try to prevent other men from making the mistakes I made. Tun's voice was earnest. I can't undo the past, but I can make sure the future is different. Adewale nodded. That's all any of us can do. As the party wound down and guests began leaving, Adewale found himself alone with his mother in the center's garden. The sun was setting over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. You did a beautiful thing, my son, Mom Ngozi said, gesturing to the building behind them. We did it together. No. You did this. You took your pain and turned it into something that helps others. That's the mark of true character. Adewale was quiet for a moment. Mama, I need to tell you something. I've been thinking about it for weeks. What is it? I'm stepping back from the company. Not permanently, but I need time away. I've spent 10 years building an empire, and in the process, I lost sight of what matters. I almost lost you because I was too busy chasing success to see what was happening in my own home. Mom Ngozi took his hand. What will you do? Travel. Think. Maybe do some volunteer work. I've spent so long being Adewale Okonkwo, the tech billionaire. I want to figure out who I am without all of that. And the company? I'm promoting my deputy, Olyamide. He's brilliant and ready. The company will be fine. Better than fine. He'll take it places I never could. Mom Ngozi smiled, her eyes crinkling. Your father would be proud. He always said that knowing when to rest is as important as knowing when to work. I just don't want to wake up one day and realize I spent my whole life building things but never lived. Then go, my son. Live. Find peace. Discover who you are when you're not fighting or proving or achieving. Just being. That night, Adewale received an unexpected visitor at his home. When he opened the door, he found Chidinma's mother, Mrs. Nwachukwu, standing there, looking aged and worn. Mr. Okonkwo, she began hesitantly. I know I have no right to be here, but I needed to speak with you and your mother. Adewale almost closed the door. Then he remembered his mother's words about grace and second chances. Come in, he said, stepping aside. Mom Ngozi joined them in the living room, her wheelchair positioned across from where Mrs. Nwachukwu sat. Mrs. Okonkwo, the older woman began, her voice shaking. I came to apologize. For my daughter's actions, yes, but also for my own. I knew Chidinma was troubled. I saw the greed growing in her, the way she valued money over people. But I said nothing. I was seduced by the lifestyle, the prestige of having a daughter married to a billionaire. She wiped her eyes. When I heard what she did to you, I was horrified. Not just because of the violence, but because I realized I'd raised a daughter who could do such a thing. I failed as a mother. Mama Ngozi wheeled closer. We all fail sometimes. The question is what we do after. Chidinma writes to me from prison. She's different now. Broken, but maybe in a way that allows healing. She talks about the women she's met inside, the stories she's heard. She says she finally understands what real suffering looks like. How is she? Adewale asked, surprised by his own curiosity. Surviving. She's been helping other inmates learn to read, teaching them basic computer skills. The warden says she's a model prisoner. Mrs. Nwachukwu looked directly at Mom Ngozi. She asked me to tell you something. She said, tell Mama that every day, I pray for her. And every day, I try to be the woman she believed I could be. Mom Ngozi's eyes filled with tears. Tell her I'm praying for her too. And that I believe redemption is possible for everyone, even those who've done terrible things. After Mrs. Nwachukwu left, Adewale sat with his mother in silence. Do you really believe that? He asked. That everyone can be redeemed? I believe everyone deserves the chance to try. Whether they succeed is up to them and God. Mom Ngozi looked at her son. But I've learned that holding on to hatred only hurts the person carrying it. Chidinma may never fully redeem herself. But I can be free of what she did. And that freedom is worth more than any revenge. 2 weeks later, Adewale stood at the departure gate of Lagos Airport, this time as a traveler rather than a greeter. He was going to Ghana first, then Kenya, then wherever the journey took him. No schedule, no board meetings, no empire to manage. Just him and a backpack and the open road. Mom Ngozi had insisted on coming to see him off, despite the early hour. Don't stay gone too long, she said, holding his hand. I won't. But I need this, Mama. I need to find myself again. I know. She pulled him down and kissed his forehead, the way she had when he was a child. Go with God, my son. And remember, you don't need to carry the whole world. Sometimes, you just need to carry yourself. As Adewale walked through security, he turned back one last time. Mom Ngozi was waving, her smile bright despite the early morning shadows. And for the first time in months, Adewale felt light. Not because his problems had disappeared. Chidinma was still in prison, Tun still faced trial, the scars on his mother's body would never fully fade. But because he'd learned something crucial. Forgiveness wasn't about forgetting or excusing. It was about refusing to let the past control your future. As his plane lifted off over Lagos, Adewale looked down at the sprawling city, the slums and mansions, the traffic and chaos, the beauty and brokenness all woven together. And he realized that Lagos was a lot like life itself. Messy, complicated, sometimes painful, but also full of possibility for those brave enough to rebuild. 8 months later, Adewale returned to Lagos a different man. His flight touched down on a humid Tuesday afternoon, and as he walked through the familiar chaos of Murtala Muhammad Airport, he felt both foreign and at home. He'd spent months traveling, volunteering at orphanages in Nairobi, teaching coding to kids in Accra, hiking through the mountains of Ethiopia, sitting with monks in a monastery outside Addis Ababa. He'd gone looking for answers and found something better, questions he'd never thought to ask. Mom Ngozi was waiting for him at arrivals, standing now with only a cane for support. Her physical therapy had worked miracles. When she saw him, her face lit up with such joy that Adewale felt his throat tighten. Mama, he embraced her carefully. You're standing. Did you think I'd let you come home to a mother in a wheelchair? I have pride, you know. She pulled back, studying his face. You look different. Lighter. I feel different. Good. That was the point. They drove back to the Ikoyi house, which Adewale had kept but rarely visited during his marriage to Chidinma. It felt different now. Cleaner, emptier, like a house that had been exorcised of bad memories. Over dinner that evening, Mom Ngozi updated him on everything he'd missed. Ominat is thriving at MIT, she began. Top of her class. She calls me every Sunday. She's even thinking about starting a scholarship program of her own for African girls studying STEM. And Tund. He served 18 months. Got out 2 weeks ago on good behavior. He's living in a modest flat in Yoba, working as a counselor at a youth center. He and Ominat talk every day now. It's not perfect, but it's real. Adewale felt a strange mix of emotions, satisfaction that Tund was trying, skepticism about whether change could really last. And Chidinma? Mom Ngozi was quiet for a moment. She's still in prison. But she's changed, Whale. Truly changed. She's been leading workshops for the other inmates on financial literacy and self-worth. The prison chaplain says she's like a different person. People don't change that much, Mama. Don't they? You did. Tun did. Why can't Chidinma? Adewale had no answer to that. The next day, Adewale visited the Mom Ngozi Community Center. It had grown beyond anything he'd imagined. What started as a small facility in Makoko now had branches in 3 other Lagos neighborhoods, serving hundreds of women and children. The director, an energetic woman named Blessing, gave him a tour. "We're not just treating physical wounds anymore," Blessing explained. "We're addressing trauma, teaching job skills, providing legal aid. Some of our graduates have started their own businesses. 2 just got accepted to university." "This is incredible," Adewale said, watching women in a classroom learning computer programming. "It's all because of your mother. She's here 3 times a week, counseling women, sharing her story. She's become a symbol of survival and grace." In one room, Adewale stopped short. On the wall was a large photograph. Mom Ngozi sitting with Chidinma's mother, Mrs. Nwachukwu, both women holding hands and smiling. "What's this?" Adewale asked. Blessing smiled. "Mrs. Nwachukwu volunteers here now. She teaches sewing and tailoring. She and your mother have become friends." Adewale felt something shift inside him. His mother had befriended the woman whose daughter had nearly killed her. If that wasn't the definition of grace, he didn't know what was. That evening, Adewale received a call from an unexpected source. The prison warden at Kirikiri Maximum Security Prison. "Mr. Okonkwo, my name is Warden Olusala. I'm calling about your ex-wife, Chidinma." Adewale's stomach tightened. "Is she all right?" "She's fine. Actually, she's more than fine. She's been instrumental in reforming our prison education program. But that's not why I'm calling." The warden paused. "She's up for early parole review. With her good behavior and the work she's done here, there's a strong chance she'll be released in 6 months instead of serving her full sentence." "I see. The parole board wants to hear from you and your mother. As the victims, your opinions carry significant weight. What does Chidinma want?" "She wants to speak to you. She asked if you'd be willing to visit. She says she has things she needs to say, apologies she needs to make in person." Adewale closed his eyes. "Let me think about it." After hanging up, he went to his mother's room. She was reading her Bible, her reading glasses perched on her nose. "Mama, Chidinma wants to see me." Mom Ngozi set down her Bible. "And do you want to see her?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to leave the past buried. But another part." He trailed off. "Another part wants closure," Mom Ngozi finished. "Real closure, not just legal closure." "Yes. Then go. Not for her. For you. To see with your own eyes whether her change is real. To speak the words you need to speak." She took his hand. "And to hear the words she needs to say." 3 days later, Adewale sat in a visiting room at Kirikiri Prison, waiting. The room was institutional and cold, metal tables bolted to the floor, guards watching from the corners, the smell of disinfectant barely masking older, darker smells. When Chidinma entered, Adewale barely recognized her. Gone were the designer clothes, the perfect makeup, the carefully styled hair. This woman wore a simple prison uniform, her hair natural and pulled back, her face clean of cosmetics. She looked younger and older at the same time, younger without the artifice, older with the weight of experience. She sat across from him, her hands folded on the table, and for a long moment, neither spoke. "Thank you for coming," Chidinma said finally, her voice quiet. "I wasn't sure I would. I wouldn't have blamed you if you hadn't." She looked directly at him, and Adewale saw something in her eyes he'd never seen before, genuine humility. "Well, I know sorry isn't enough. It will never be enough for what I did. But I need to say it anyway, not because I expect forgiveness, but because you deserve to hear it. So say it. I'm sorry. For everything. For betraying you, for hurting your mother, for being so consumed by greed that I lost my humanity. I was a monster, and I can't change that. But I can be honest about it now." Adewale's jaw tightened. "Why? Why did you do it? I gave you everything. You did. And that was the problem. I never had to work for anything with you. Everything was given, handed to me on a silver platter. And instead of being grateful, I became entitled. I started thinking I deserved more, That your mother's inheritance should be mine, that Tun's attention meant I was special. She wiped her eyes. But none of that is an excuse. I made choices. Evil choices. And your mother suffered because of them. She almost died. I know. I see her face every night when I close my eyes. I hear her scream. I smell the burning. Chidinma's voice broke. I live with that every second of every day. And I should. Adewale leaned back, studying her. The warden says you've changed. That you're teaching other inmates, helping them. I'm trying to. Not to earn early parole or to look good. But because I met women in here who reminded me of your mother. Women who'd been hurt, betrayed, abandoned. And I realized I'd become exactly the kind of person who creates victims like them. So what do you want from me? Nothing. I don't expect your forgiveness or your approval. I just wanted you to know that the woman who hurt your mother is dead. I killed her piece by piece, every day I've been in here. The woman sitting in front of you now is someone new. Someone who understands what real suffering looks like and who wants to spend the rest of her life trying to ease it, even in small ways. Adewale was silent for a long moment. Then he asked the question that had haunted him for months. Did you ever love me? Even a little? Chidinma's tears fell freely now. I thought I did. But I realize now I didn't know what love was. I loved what you could give me, the life you provided, the status. But I didn't love you, the man who worked until 3 a.m. because he believed in his vision, who visited his mother every week, who cried watching movies because you felt things deeply. She reached toward his hand, then stopped herself. I'm learning what real love is now, from the women in here who share their last food with each other, who hold each other when nightmares come, who sacrifice for people who can't give them anything in return. That's love. What I felt for you was just greed wearing love's mask. Adewale felt tears on his own face now. I needed to hear that. I've spent months wondering if I failed you somehow, if I could have prevented what happened. No. You were a good husband. Too good. I was the failure, not you. They sat in silence, the weight of everything said and unsaid hanging between them. Finally, Adewale stood. I hope you find peace, Chidinma. Real peace, not just the absence of guilt. Will you speak to the parole board? For or against me? I'll understand either way. Adewale thought about his mother, about grace and redemption, about second chances and the courage it took to truly change. I'll tell them the truth. That you hurt us badly. That forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. But also that people can change, and that maybe, you're proof of that. Chidinma's sob was audible. Thank you. As Adewale walked out of the prison, past the razor wire and guard towers, into the Lagos afternoon, he felt something release inside his chest. He didn't know if Chidinma's change was permanent. He didn't know if she deserved a second chance. But he knew that carrying hatred for her had been crushing him, and letting it go, not forgiving, not forgetting, but simply releasing the weight, made him feel lighter than he had in years. His phone buzzed. A text from Mom Ngozi. How did it go? Adewale typed back. I'm free, Mama. Finally free. 6 months later, Lagos was in the grip of its rainy season. The kind of rain that washed the city clean, that made everything smell like wet earth and new beginnings. Adewale stood in the Mom Ngozi Community Center's main hall, watching workers put finishing touches on decorations. Today was special, the center's 1-year anniversary, and they were celebrating with a ceremony honoring women who'd graduated from their programs and successfully rebuilt their lives. Mom Ngozi moved through the space with her cane, her silver hair styled elegantly, wearing traditional attire in purple and gold. She looked radiant, every inch the queen she'd always been in spirit if not in status. Stop fussing, she told Adewale, swatting his hand away as he tried to adjust a wrapper. Everything is perfect. I just want today to be special for you. Every day is special now, my son. I'm alive, I'm walking, I'm doing work that matters. What more could an old woman ask for? You're not old. You're timeless. She laughed, the sound like music. Flatterer. You learned that from your father. Guests began arriving, government officials, business leaders, journalists, but most importantly, the women whose lives had been transformed by the center. They came in their Sunday best, bringing their children, their hope visible in every smile. Ominat arrived with Tund, both flying in from the States where Tund had relocated to be closer to his daughter during her studies. Ominat wore her MIT hoodie with pride, and Tund looked genuinely content. No designer labels, no gold chains, just a simple shirt and the peaceful expression of a man who'd found his purpose. Uncle Whale. Ominat embraced him warmly. MIT sends their regards. They want to partner with the Foundation for a study abroad program for Nigerian girls. That's incredible. Tund extended his hand, and Adewale shook it. The animosity that once existed between them had faded into something like mutual respect. Thank you, Tund said simply, for not giving up on redemption. Mine or anyone else's. Thank your daughter. She's the one who believed you could change. I know. I'm trying every day to be worthy of that belief. The ceremony began with traditional drumming, the rhythm pulsing through the hall like a heartbeat. Women stood one by one to share their stories. Former victims of domestic violence who now ran businesses, single mothers who'd found education and employment, survivors who'd transformed their pain into purpose. Then came an announcement that made the room fall silent. We have a special guest today, the program director, Blessing, announced. Someone whose journey represents the very heart of what we do here, the belief that no one is beyond redemption, and that grace can transform even the darkest situations. The doors opened, and Chidinma walked in. She'd been released on parole 2 weeks earlier, and Adewale had only learned about it that morning when Mom Ngozi told him she'd invited her. Chidinma wore a simple wrapper and blouse, her hair natural, no makeup. She looked nervous, her eyes scanning the room until they found Mom Ngozi. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Everyone knew who she was, the woman who'd poured boiling water on the center's namesake. Chidinma walked slowly to the front, each step requiring visible courage. When she reached Mom Ngozi, she fell to her knees in the traditional Yoruba gesture of deep respect and remorse. Mama, her voice cracked. I know I don't deserve to be here. I know what I did to you is unforgivable. But you invited me, and I came because I wanted everyone here to see what your grace did for me. Mom Ngozi reached down and lifted Chidinma's chin. Stand up, child. We don't grovel here. We rise. Chidinma stood, tears streaming down her face. Mom Ngozi took her hand and addressed the room. Many of you know this woman's story. She hurt me badly. She let greed and jealousy turn her into someone cruel. But in prison, she changed. She taught other women, helped them find dignity and purpose. She faced what she'd done and chose to become better. Mom Ngozi's voice grew stronger. Today, I want to announce that Chidinma will be joining our staff. She'll be working with women who've committed crimes, helping them transition back into society. Because if anyone understands how hard that journey is, it's her. The room erupted, some in applause, others in shocked murmurs. Adewale felt his own surprise, though he should have known his mother would do something like this. Chidinma addressed the crowd, her voice shaking but determined. I don't expect all of you to understand this decision. I don't expect forgiveness. But I promise you this. I will spend every day proving that Mom Ngozi's faith in me wasn't misplaced. I will honor the second chance she's given me by helping others find their second chances. She turned to Adewale, who stood at the side of the room. Whale, I know seeing me is painful. I know my presence here might always remind you of the worst time in your life. If you want me to leave, I will. No questions asked. The entire room turned to look at Adewale. He felt hundreds of eyes on him, waiting for his response. He thought about the journey he'd been on, the anger, the desire for revenge, the slow, painful process of learning to let go. He thought about Tund and Ominat, about second chances and redemption, about his mother's unwavering belief that Grace could transform anything. He walked forward until he stood in front of Chidinma. "What you did to my mother was evil," he said clearly, his voice carrying through the silent room. "It caused her pain that will never fully heal. It broke our marriage and destroyed trust one thought was unbreakable." Chidinma nodded, more tears falling. "But," Adewale continued, "I've learned something in the past year. Holding on to hatred doesn't hurt the person who wronged you. It hurts you. My mother taught me that forgiveness isn't about the person who caused the harm deserving it. It's about refusing to let that harm define the rest of your life." He extended his hand. "Welcome to the team, Chidinma. Don't make us regret this." Chidinma stared at his hand for a long moment, then took it, her grip trembling. "I won't. I swear I won't." The room erupted in applause, not universal, but enough. Some people walked out, unable to accept what they'd witnessed. Others stayed, tears in their eyes, moved by the radical grace they'd just seen. After the ceremony, as guests mingled and ate jollof rice and plantains, Adewale found himself on the center's balcony, looking out over Makoko. The floating slum where his mother had once pushed a charcoal cart now had a community center, a rebuilt bridge, electricity in more homes. Progress. Slow, imperfect, but real. Mom Ngozi joined him, leaning on her cane. "Are you angry with me?" she asked. "For hiring her without telling you?" "I was. For about 5 minutes. Then I realized you were right, as usual. I'm not always right. But I've learned that grace multiplied is more powerful than revenge ever could be. Chidinma will help hundreds of women because she understands their darkness. She's been there. Do you really believe she's changed?" "Completely. Change is never complete. We're all works in progress until the day we die. But I believe she's trying. And I believe that as long as someone is genuinely trying, they deserve support." Mom Ngozi looked up at her son. "You've changed too, you know. The man who walked into that room a year ago would have thrown Chidinma out. But you extended your hand. I learned from the best teacher." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun begin its descent toward the horizon, painting the Lagos sky in shades of amber and rose. "What's next for you, my son?" Mom Ngozi asked. "You've rebuilt the foundation, traveled the world, made peace with your past. What does Adewale Okonkwo want for his future?" Adewale smiled. "I've been thinking about that. I want to live differently. Not chasing the next billion, not building empires. I want to build relationships, communities. Maybe find love again someday, with someone who values what I value." "You will. But this time, you'll choose more wisely. You've learned what to look for. Not beauty or status, but character, strength, grace. Someone like you, Mama." She laughed. "I hope you find someone younger than 70 with better knees." As evening fell and guests began to leave, Adewale noticed Chidinma sitting alone on a bench in the garden, watching children play on the new playground equipment. He almost walked past, then changed his mind. "Mind if I sit?" he asked. She looked surprised but nodded. "Of course." They sat in silence for a moment, the laughter of children filling the air. "I meant what I said earlier," Adewale said. "This is your second chance. But it's also your only chance." "I know. I won't waste it." "Why? Why do you want to work here, of all places? You could have gone anywhere, done anything. Why come back to the scene of your worst crime?" Chidinma watched a little girl on the swings, her expression thoughtful. "Because I need to face what I did every day. If I run from it, if I pretend it didn't happen, I'll slip back into who I was. But if I'm here, surrounded by women who've suffered like your mother suffered, I have to stay accountable. I have to remember." That sounds painful. It is. But it's the pain that keeps me human. Prison taught me that comfort makes you weak. Facing your demons makes you strong. Adewale nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I hope you succeed. Not for my sake or even my mother's, For yours. And for all the women you'll help. Thank you. That means more than you know. She paused. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think you'll ever truly forgive me? Not just say the words, but feel it in your heart. Adewale considered this carefully. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But I've learned that forgiveness isn't a feeling. It's a choice. A choice I make every day when I choose not to hate you, not to wish you harm, not to let what you did poison my future. That's more than I deserve. Probably. But grace usually is. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, Adewale and Mom Ngozi sat in her small apartment attached to the community center. She was tired but happy, her eyes reflecting the satisfaction of a day well spent. Tell me honestly, Mama, Adewale said. When Chidinma poured that water on you, did you ever imagine it would lead to this? To a community center, to changed lives, to redemption stories? Mom Ngozi smiled softly. When the water hit me, all I felt was pain. In the hospital, all I felt was confusion. Why would someone hurt a helpless old woman? But somewhere in those dark days, I realized something. That moment of cruelty could either destroy me or define me. And I chose to let it define me as a survivor, not a victim. You're more than a survivor, Mama. You're a victor. No, my son. We're all victors, every person who chooses grace over bitterness, forgiveness over revenge, hope over despair. Chidinma, Tund, Ominat, you, me. We're all fighting the same battle against our worst selves. Some days we win. Some days we lose. But the fight itself is what makes us human. Adewale knelt beside her chair, taking her scarred hand in his. The burns had healed to silvery lines, a permanent reminder of that terrible day. These scars, he said softly. Do they still hurt? Sometimes. When the weather changes, when I'm tired. But mostly, they remind me. Of what? That I survived. That pain is temporary but grace is eternal. That boiling water can burn skin, but it can't touch the soul. She squeezed his hand. And that sometimes, God allows us to be broken so he can show the world how beautifully he can put us back together. 1 year later, the Mom Ngozi Community Center held its second anniversary celebration. This time, the event was massive, covered by international media, attended by government ministers, with partnerships announced with universities across Africa and America. Ominat gave the keynote speech, talking about her experience at MIT and her plans to return to Nigeria to start a tech incubator for young women. Tund sat in the front row, beaming with pride, a man transformed by the love of a daughter who'd chosen to give him grace. Chidinma stood at the back, not seeking attention, just watching. She'd spent the year working tirelessly, counseling over 300 women transitioning out of prison. The recidivism rate among her clients was 0. Every woman she'd worked with had found legitimate work and stayed out of trouble. But the biggest surprise of the day came at the end of the ceremony. Adewale took the microphone, and the room fell silent. 1 year ago, he began, I thought my life was defined by betrayal, by pain, by the need for justice. I was wrong. My life is defined by the people in this room. Survivors, fighters, believers in second chances. He gestured to his mother. Mom Ngozi, you taught me that strength isn't about never falling down. It's about choosing to get back up, even when every bone in your body wants to stay down. You are my hero. Mom Ngozi wiped her eyes, smiling. Today, I'm announcing the next phase of our work. The Okonkwo Foundation will be funding community centers in 10 more Nigerian cities, creating jobs for 5,000 women over the next 5 years, and establishing a rehabilitation program for people leaving prison. Applause thundered through the room. But more importantly, Adewale continued, his voice softer now, I'm announcing my engagement. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Adewale smiled and gestured to the side door, where a beautiful woman entered, Dr. Nena Okafor, a trauma counselor who'd been volunteering at the center for months. She was brilliant, kind, and had a laugh that could light up a room. They'd met 6 months earlier when she'd joined the center's staff. She'd lost her own mother to domestic violence and dedicated her life to helping other survivors. She understood pain, but she also understood hope. Nena has taught me what real love looks like, Adewale said, his eyes on her. Not the flashy, superficial kind, but the kind that shows up every day, that does the hard work, that chooses commitment even when it's difficult. Nena joined him at the front, and he took her hand. We're not getting married in some big Lagos society wedding, Adewale announced. We're having a simple ceremony right here, at this center, surrounded by the people whose lives prove that love, real love, can conquer anything. The room erupted in celebration. Mom Ngozi was crying, Ominat was cheering, even Chidinma was smiling through her tears. 3 months later, on a sunny Lagos morning, Adewale and Nena were married in the community center's garden. The ceremony was small but perfect. Traditional Igbo and Yoruba customs blended together, children singing, women dancing, joy overflowing. Mom Ngozi, in her finest traditional attire, gave the blessing. My son, she said, her voice carrying across the gathered crowd, you have walked through fire and come out refined, not destroyed. You have learned that the greatest victories aren't won through revenge, but through grace. May your marriage be built on that same grace, that same forgiveness, that same unwavering commitment to choosing love even when it's hard. She turned to Nena. Welcome to our family, daughter. Thank you for showing my son that his past doesn't define his future. The ceremony ended with music and dancing, with jollof rice and pounded yam, with laughter and tears and the kind of joy that only comes after deep sorrow has been transformed into something beautiful. As the sun set and guests began to leave, Adewale found himself once again on the balcony overlooking Makoko. This time, Nena stood beside him, her hand in his. What are you thinking? She asked. I'm thinking about how much can change in 2 years. How the worst day of my life led to the best days of my life. Regret anything? The pain my mother went through. Yes, I'll always regret that. But what came after? No. We don't grow in comfort. We grow in crisis. That's very philosophical for a tech billionaire. He laughed. Former tech billionaire. Now I'm just a man trying to make his mother proud and love his wife well. You're doing both. They stood watching the city lights flicker on across Lagos, the massive, messy, beautiful city that had witnessed their lowest moments and highest triumphs. Do you think they'll make it? Nena asked, nodding toward where Chidinma was helping pack up chairs. People like her. Some will. Some won't. But the fact that we give them a chance, that we believe redemption is possible, that's what matters. You sound like your mother. That's the highest compliment you could give me. 5 years later, the Mom Ngozi Community Center had expanded to 15 locations across Nigeria, with plans to launch in Kenya and Ghana. Chidinma had become the National Director of Prisoner Rehabilitation Programs. Her story featured in documentaries and academic journals. Tund and Ominat had co-authored a book called Absent Fathers, Present Grace, helping thousands of broken families find reconciliation. Ominat had graduated from MIT with honors and returned to Nigeria to start her tech company, already valued at $50 million. And Adewale and Nena had welcomed twins, a boy and a girl they named Ngozi and Chidi, honoring both grandmothers. On Mom Ngozi's 75th birthday, the entire extended family gathered at the original community center in Makoko. 4 generations sat together. Mom Ngozi holding her great-grandchildren, Adewale and Nena surrounded by their community, Tund and Ominat planning their next father-daughter project. Even Chidinma was there, no longer an outsider but a valued member of the family that had chosen to give her grace instead of condemnation. As the evening celebration wound down and the Lagos sky turned purple with dusk, Mom Ngozi raised a glass of palm wine. I want to tell you all something, she said, her voice still strong despite her years. When that boiling water hit me, I thought my story was ending. But it was just beginning. That moment of pain became the foundation for thousands of moments of healing. She looked around at all the faces, some scarred like hers, all marked by life but not defeated by it. We are all broken people, Mom Ngozi continued. Every single one of us has poured boiling water on someone, literally or figuratively. We've all hurt and been hurt. But the question isn't whether we'll be broken. The question is what we'll do with our brokenness. She raised her glass higher. Will we let it make us bitter, or will we let it make us better? Will we seek revenge, or will we choose redemption? Will we build walls, or will we build bridges? Everyone raised their glasses with her. To bridges, Mom Ngozi declared. To grace that's stronger than hate. To forgiveness that's more powerful than revenge. To second chances and third chances, and as many chances as it takes for all of us to become who we were meant to be. To bridges, the crowd echoed, and the sound rang out across Makoko, across Lagos, a declaration that love, messy, complicated, difficult, beautiful love, would always be stronger than hate. As the night deepened and stars appeared over Lagos, Adewale held his children and watched his mother laugh with his wife, surrounded by the family and community they'd built from ashes. And he realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well. It's choosing grace. It's turning your pain into someone else's healing. That's how you win. Not by destroying your enemies, but by refusing to become one. The end. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through pain, redemption, and grace. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to Stories of Filipino for more powerful African stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Drop a comment below telling us, what was your biggest takeaway from Adewale and Mom Ngozi's story? Have you experienced betrayal and chosen forgiveness? Where are you watching from? Lagos, Nairobi, New York, London? Let's connect in the comments. Remember, the boiling water doesn't define you. What you do after it cools, that's what makes you who you are. Stay blessed, stay strong, and keep believing in second chances. See you in the next story. Folded hands, medium dark skin tone, red heart,